Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom filled with lush green hills and sparkling rivers, lived a kind-hearted young girl named Cinderella. She was gentle and cheerful, always ready to help others, even though her own life was touched by sadness. Her mother had passed away when she was little, and her father, a nobleman, was often away on his duties. But things changed when her father remarried. Cinderella's new stepmother and her two daughters moved in. They were proud and vain, caring only for fine gowns and jewels. They treated Cinderella not like family, but like a servant. She slept in a cold attic, cleaned every room, cooked all the meals, and swept the floors while her stepsisters laughed and played. Through it all, Cinderella never complained. She just kept working, speaking kindly to the animals and birds who became her only friends, and quietly dreamed of brighter days. One morning, a grand invitation arrived. The king and queen were hosting a magnificent ball at the palace. Every young maiden in the kingdom was invited, as the charming prince was looking for a bride. The stepmother and stepsisters were ecstatic. They spent days planning their dresses, their hairstyles, and their dance moves. Cinderella, with her usual kindness, helped them prepare everything. She polished their shoes, ironed their gowns, and set their hair, all the while secretly hoping she might be able to go to it. But when the evening of the ball finally arrived, her stepmother looked at her with a cold expression and said, "You cannot come, Cinderella. There is far too much work for you to do here." And with that, the three of them departed for the palace in their fine carriage. Leaving Cinderella all alone, with only the ashes from the fireplace for company, Cinderella sat in the garden, tears welling up in her eyes as she thought about the beautiful music and dancing she was missing. Suddenly, a soft golden light began to glow all around her, and standing right there with a gentle smile was her fairy godmother. "Dear Cinderella, dry your tears," she said in a warm voice. "Tonight you shall go to the ball." With a wave of her magic wand, everything began to change. Cinderella's tattered, old dress transformed into a shimmering gown of silver and blue. Her worn-out shoes were replaced with delicate glass slippers that glowed like stars. Next, the fairy godmother tapped a humble pumpkin growing by the garden gate, and it swelled into a magnificent golden carriage. 6 little mice scurrying nearby were turned into 6 graceful white horses to pull it, with a coachman and footman to guide them. As Cinderella marveled at the transformation, her fairy godmother gave her a gentle warning. "This magic is powerful, but it has a limit. You must return home by the stroke of midnight. When the clock strikes 12, everything will return to how it was before." Cinderella promised she would remember, thanked her fairy godmother with all her heart, and set off for the palace, her spirit soaring with excitement. At the palace, the music floated through the air like a gentle breeze. When Cinderella entered the grand ballroom, every head turned. No one had ever seen such a beautiful and graceful maiden. The prince himself was captivated. He walked straight to her, bowed, and asked, "May I have this dance?" Cinderella smiled, and they began to dance. They waltzed under the glittering chandeliers, through echoing hallways, and beside sparkling fountains, sharing happy laughter and heartfelt stories. It felt like a dream. Her stepsisters watched from a corner, green with envy, wondering who this mysterious princess could be, who had stolen the attention of the entire court, and especially the prince. But as the evening flew by, the grand clock in the tower began to chime. 1, 2, 3. Cinderella's heart skipped a beat as she remembered her fairy godmother's warning. It was almost midnight. She had to leave at once. She quickly excused herself, slipping away from the prince before he could ask her name. She ran down the grand marble staircase, her silver blue gown shimmering in the moonlight. In her haste, one of her delicate glass slippers slipped off her foot and was left behind on the steps. Just as the clock struck its final chime of 12, Cinderella reached her garden. The magnificent carriage turned back into a pumpkin. The horses became mice again, and her beautiful gown dissolved back into her old, tattered rags. But in her pocket, she still had the other glass slipper, a sparkling reminder of the magical night. Back at the palace, the prince stood on the steps, holding the single, shimmering shoe she had left behind. He was determined to find the mysterious maiden he had fallen for. The very next day, the prince made a royal proclamation. "The owner of this glass slipper is the one true maiden I danced with. I will search every corner of the kingdom until I find her." His royal messengers traveled far and wide, visiting every house in the land, asking every young woman to try on the slipper. Finally, they arrived at Cinderella's home. The two stepsisters, eager for a chance to marry the prince, tried with all their might to squeeze their feet into the tiny glass shoe, but it was no use. It simply would not fit. Just as the messengers were about to leave, one of them noticed Cinderella sitting quietly by the hearth. "Let her try," the royal guard said. The stepmother scoffed, but they insisted. Cinderella sat down, and as she lifted her foot, the slipper slid on perfectly. To everyone's astonishment, it was a perfect fit. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the matching slipper. At that very moment, the prince, who had accompanied his messengers, recognized her. His eyes lit up. "You," he said gently, "you are the one I danced with." Cinderella smiled, and in that instant, all her years of patience, kindness, and quiet hope were rewarded. Soon after, a grand wedding was held at the palace. True to her kind heart, Cinderella forgave her stepmother and stepsisters and even invited them to the celebration. She and the prince ruled their kingdom with love, laughter, and immense kindness, living happily ever after. And the story of Cinderella teaches us a beautiful lesson that no matter how difficult times may get, if you remain kind, hopeful, and true to your good heart, magic and happiness can find you in the most unexpected of ways. After all, kindness and hope shine brighter than any crown or glass slipper. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more magical tales.